is Mark Wells, and this is the Wells Report for my people. With the election and subsequent inauguration of Barack Obama as the 44th President of the United States and America's first black president, there's been much discussion in the press as to whether we are now in a post-racial era in which race has little or if any influence on one's pursuit of happiness and the so-called American dream. CNN, ABC, NPR, Fox, and PBS are just a few of the news networks that have used the term post-racial, debated it, or argued in favor or against its reality. Well, let's be clear. There is no way that the ascension of one black man to the nation's highest office signals a sudden post-racial society. There is evidence galore of this fact. Besides the overwhelming amount of data that proves that African Americans continue to lag far behind European Americans in terms of wealth, income, and education, we can get a pretty clear understanding of how race works, not only in America but throughout the world, by simply taking a look at the fashion and advertising industries. If we are indeed living in a post-racial era, all industries would have a fair representation of the diversity of a people living in a given society. To test my theory, I did a Google image search for the women's fitness magazine Shape, and the only black woman I saw in the first 176 magazine covers was tennis star Venus Williams. Recently, French cosmetics giant L'Oreal was found guilty of racial discrimination by France's highest court after it was discovered that executives of the company sought an all-white sales staff to promote its shampoos. Garnier, L'Oreal's division of beauty products, attempted to exclude black, Asian, and Arab women from selling its shampoo in French supermarkets. It was also discovered that in the year 2000, an executive sent a fax requesting that Garnier's hostesses should be aged 18 to 22, wear a certain size clothing, and be, quote, BBR, unquote, which means bleu, blanc, and rouge, which means blue, white, and red, the colors of the French flag and also a well-known code for white people. This type of racial exclusion is not just a French thing. British supermodel Naomi Campbell had this to say about the issue of race in the fashion industry. Quote, "You know, the American president may be black, but as a black woman, I am still an exception in this business. I have always had to work harder to be treated equally. In the past, there were more opportunities for black models, but the trend towards blonde women has again become extreme. In magazines, on the catwalk, I see blonde, blue-eyed models everywhere," unquote. Is Campbell simply blowing things out of proportion? I would say no. It's not that there isn't a lack of black faces on American, European, or even Brazilian runways and magazine stands. It's just that we are so accustomed to the fact that when someone points it out, it seems as if they're just whining. The trend is similar in Brazil. Here is an example of what typical Brazilian women's magazine covers look like from month to month. Now, one could easily assume that these magazines represent only one edition of each magazine, but that's simply not the case. In my research, I found that Brazil's Corpo a Corpo magazine featured only one Afro-Brazilian woman on its cover in 101 issues in an 8-year period between August '96 and December 2004. I found similar trends in many other Brazilian women's magazines. This in a country of almost 200 million where half of the population is Afro-Brazilian. The glaring omission of black models on international runways was one of the primary reasons that Italian Vogue felt compelled to release the so-called all-black edition of its July 2008 issue, featuring various models of African descent. When I wrote about this particular edition of Italian Vogue last year, I said that releasing one issue of one magazine with a few black faces in it wouldn't change the racially exclusionary practices of the fashion industry. Although Afro-Brazilians make up half of the country's population, they represent only about 2.3% of the models on the runways of the Sao Paulo Fashion Week. Sao Paulo Fashion Week is the most important fashion show in Latin America. It is put on twice a year in January and June and is similar to other popular fashion events that take place in places such as Milan, London, Paris, and New York. The lack of diversity on the world's fashion runways was the topic of a 2008 BET special program entitled Fashion Blackout. And in early 2008, 20 Afro-Brazilian models staged a protest at the Fashion Rio event in Rio de Janeiro. One of these models expressed how depressing it is to see a fashion show and see only white women walking. Another says that in the big fashion shows, black models are absolutely cut out. Yet another says that she only got to walk once in a fashion show during her 7 years as a model. The usual excuse for the lack of black faces in advertising-driven industries is that black faces don't sell. Now, if that's the case, is this a reflection of a racist industry or a racist industry simply representing the inherent racism of a given society? I would say both. And let us all remember that all races are not disguised in white hoods. So in regards to my initial topic, we can all admit that the election of Barack Obama is an historic event, not only for America but for the world. But we cannot judge the effects of racial inequality by the accomplishments of one man. After all, the Civil Rights Movement, Women's Lib, and the United Farm Workers movements were more about the overall uplift of the people from which these movements initiated. Thus, until overall social statistics, media representation, and quality of life improve for the group from which Barack Obama came, we cannot honestly begin to talk of a post-racial society. And this applies to America, Brazil, Europe, and any other multiracial society where multiculturalism is the dream, but not yet the reality. This is Mark Wells, and this has been the Wells Report for my people.
Hi, springtime is home improvement time, and I'm here from All Home Improvement to solve your repair needs. For an estimate, call area code 313-896-3603. Again, area code 313-896-3603.
There are 3 basic necessities every business needs: a business plan, a bookkeeper, and a website. Call Project Bait for all 3. Call 313-871-3333. That's 313-871-3333.